From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.
This week, Tea Party co-founder Mark Meckler joins us to talk about the threats and challenges of a brokered GOP convention. Doug Sacklaben from Club for Growth returns to discuss primary politics. And our special guest host, complete with a fresh set of new knees, is Londonderry Fish and Game Club President Richard Olson. There are plenty of other topics on tap, including our take on the news of the week. Stay tuned. Grok Talk starts in just a few minutes.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Watershed protection zones sound nice, and we do want to protect any given watersheds up to a point, but they have become tools for unelected regional planners to behave like, well, tools to local taxpayers. In some of the more liberal readouts across the fruited plain, watershed ordinances have resulted in rainwater runoff taxes on property owners, that is to say, new taxes charged by the municipality on top of existing taxes for rain that runs off your roof or your driveway. Before they can do that, they have to have rules in place that define these things as in a manner suitable to the end goal of taxing the crap out of people to pay for even more planning. The only control you typically have over that sort of thing is at the ballot box. And last month in Windham, New Hampshire, voters told the planners to shove it, not once, but twice. There were 2 petitioned warrants on the ballot. The one the planners wanted failed, and the one they didn't want passed. Planners were none too happy, and according to a report by Ray Carbone writing at the Eagle Tribune, planning board members Margaret Chrysler and alternate member Kathleen DeFruscia told Windham selectmen they wanted a do-over. The do-over would be to call a special meeting to revisit the ordinance because, among other things, the planners felt certain the voters were too stupid to understand it. According to the report, the planners felt that some voters have misunderstood language on the town meeting ballot indicating that the planning board opposed the ordinance. Only they could get a special meeting where only a fraction of the more activist population would show up, they could ignore the vote they didn't like and get the vote they wanted. To the credit of the Windham Board of Selectmen, they said no. Voters had spoken, and there would be another election coming up, an ample opportunity for another petition.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. If you have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Scott Morales, writing for GraniteRock.com this week, reported that the Treasury Department intends to replace the Democrat Party founder on the $20 bill with a gun-toting, heavily Christian, liberty-loving Republican. He writes, "Goodbye, Democrat Andrew Trail of Tears Jackson. Hello, Harriet, Underground Railroad Tubman." Scott continues, "Interesting. Both were involved with migrating people. It's just that the Republican was migrating people to freedom and liberty, and the Democrat was marching people to foreign territory a few states away through treacherous conditions and disease." You can read this and a lot more at GraniteRock.com. Steve McDonald here. You want proof that Democrats are evil? Well, just look at the Democrats' Obamacare contraceptive mandate. Federal government trying to force religious organizations like Little Sisters of the Poor and Priests for Life to make chemical abortions administratively available to any woman who works for them, even though it violates their religious conscience and they consider it to be murder. At the same time, the Obama administration has provided, without much if any fight, the very same exemptions these religious groups want to organizations like Visa, Pepsi, and even Exxon. Religious groups have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to take their case to the Supreme Court, and Exxon gets a pass. That's right. A big, evil oil company gets an exemption, and Democrats don't even like them. Like I said, Democrats are evil. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
3,
2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Hey, welcome back. Grok Talk. This week, we have guests. We always have guests. Of course, our special guest host is Rick Olson.
Hello, hello.
Wave your hand.
Wave your hand. Hey.
Here I am, guys.
All right, Mark Meckler will be on in a little bit. Doug Sacklebin's back from Club for Growth. Jane Cormier is going to join us at the end of the at the beginning of the last segment, because there is a Planned Parenthood protest going on at Planned Parenthood right now, Right to Life, and we want to find out if they put that buffer zone up or not. So we don't know if that happened, but it looked like they were going to do that because somebody was out measuring the property last week.
Yeah, you put up a post about that earlier in the week.
I did.
So Planned Parenthood is protesting.
No, New Hampshire Right to Life is protesting
Okay.
Planned Parenthood at Planned Parenthood on Pennacook Street. I realize I said that very badly when I first said it, so I understand your confusion. Thank you for helping us correct that. Okay, and of course we are at the CNHT studios in lovely Concord, New Hampshire, 8 North Main Street. And you can listen to this and past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Ustream, GraniteGrok.com, and we are still on the RockNHCR.com, even though I keep forgetting to mention that. So,
Awesome.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning. It's good to be
Good day,
here.
and welcome to our podcast. Okay.
Or as some of us are getting to, it's always nice to be in a different place when we say good morning.
Yes. It's nice to be walking.
Oh, yes.
Yes, walking.
Yeah, yep.
Or
Rick
as
brought his new knee with him.
Absolutely.
it's always nice not to be horizontal and approaching room temperature.
I don't know. I saw a lot of good TV programs. So.
I bet.
Yeah.
I can binge watch because I can't walk or go anywhere.
Right, exactly. That's what I was doing. Netflix, get to watch all the English television my mind can handle.
Gosh, I would be burying the front page with posts.
Control. You must learn control.
But you can't, because when you're taking the medications, you're typing on the screen board, all of a sudden your eyes are going like this. Can't do it.
All of a sudden, yeah. Yeah, well, that's just it. How was the pain? I mean,
Well,
the discomfort, the general...
Was this one knee or two?
One knee.
Okay.
Yeah, my left knee. I went in the hospital on January 12th, St. Joe's in Nashua. I had the surgery, and the surgeon said to me, okay, now when the anesthesia wears off, you've got to let the nurse know immediately when you feel it start to wear off, because we want to begin the pain management. We don't want to be playing catch-up. Well, I don't know what staff I had that night, but they sucked. They absolutely ignored me. I'm pushing the button, right? This started at like 6:30. I'm pushing the button.
Anti-gun liberal.
They don't come in. They scream out over the speaker, what can I get for you? I'm going to need some pain management. Okay, I'll let the nurse know. Hour passes. I do the same thing. So this goes on 3 times. Finally, at 9 o'clock, I'm like in a space where it hurts to move, but I have to move. Mm-hmm. And the pain is just screaming out. Add on top of that, after the surgery, I couldn't urinate, so they had to do the catheterization, and I was just hurting all the way around that first night. So needless to say, I sent the nastiest email I could send to the hospital ombudsman. But the next 2 days after that was a great hospital stay, and they gave me lots of narcotic drugs for my pain. And a word about narcotic drugs, I learned something. The time finally came for me to stop taking them. Figured, no problem, right? Well, that first 3 days that I stopped taking them was absolutely horrible. I mean, I couldn't get comfortable. I felt wound up. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit still. And I just felt like, I can't describe the feeling. It's like agitated, sort of a physically agitated, not like verbally or mentally, but it was the most uncomfortable thing. And then about the second day, and I realized, wait a minute, I am withdrawing from the narcotics, So my wife's like, oh, maybe you ought to just take No, I'm going. You know, I'll white knuckle down through it, but I'm not going to be out there buying heroin next month. Sorry.
Well, it does take a couple of days, but if you can handle the couple of days, you can get through it.
Yeah, I got through it.
It's not one of those. I mean, even heroin addiction, you don't need 6 months or a year. That's all mental. The actual
Right.
physical addiction is a couple of days. After that, if you can get your head straight, you can stay off it.
Yep.
But it's all psychological. Especially if you've been using for a long time.
Oh, sure.
It just becomes that much harder in your head to convince yourself you don't need it when your body goes.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because I said, yeah, I went from within a 3-day period, I went from narcotics to Tylenol. You know, I was fine. You know, and I mean, I still have this pain, but it's like nerve pain from healing. You know, I'll be sitting there and everything's comfortable. All of a sudden, it's like somebody stabbed a hot poker down through my knee. And I'll be like,
Nice.
sitting there, I'll be like, oh, you know. My wife goes, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" I says, "Nerve pain." You know?
Pain management.
Lasts for like three minutes, and then I'm done. So,
Well,
I'm
that's
on
actually,
the mend.
but
you
it's
know?
actually, yeah. And I was just going to say, it's a good sign because all of those nerves right after surgery meant that they're still working.
Yep.
They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to
Exactly.
tell you, don't move.
Yeah. But yeah, I got my whole new appliance in there. You know, so.
So now you get to talk to the guys at the airport.
Oh, I've already, you know, the Donald Trump event that took place down at the Executive Court and Banquet Facility. Mm-hmm. I went in there and I was setting off the metal detectors because Secret Service, they had the metal detector. Me. It's like, it's a replacement knee. It's a replacement knee, you know. So,
Well,
I'll have to think about pre-screening.
yeah, maybe, yeah. He's like, take some pictures of your knee, you know, make sure.
Oh,
you
I
have
got some.
some
Actually, I took a photograph of my X-ray. It shows the appliance in there.
yeah,
It's pretty cool.
that's cool. Here, this is me.
Yep. Here, this is my knee.
Make it your Facebook profile picture.
I make jokes. You know, my nieces and nephews, my young nieces and nephews come over. It's like I'm the crazy uncle. Here, let me come see my scar.
Great.
I have this nice long scar. It's about 9 inches long from the top of my knee right down to just below my knee. And a nice clean scar. The physical therapists were the funniest ones. You know, it's like, oh my God, that scar is so beautiful. It's like nice and straight and clean. No keloid tissue. And
Hey, next time, want to do this for me?
yeah.
I'll look at your scar.
Next year, this time, I got to have a hip. So
Oh, no.
they say the hip's easier, though. The knee's the toughest one. There is a lot of pain in physical therapy. This is amazing. This physical therapist I had, name's Kendra, I was laying flat on my back on this table, and this little tiny gal comes over, and she says, arch your knees up like this. So I arch my knees up. She reaches under the crook of my knee, grabs onto the top of my right kneecap, lifts my left leg up. So she's like this, and she's got a hole in my leg, and she's like cranking down. And I'm like, tapping out.
I was going to say, hopefully you weren't carrying and you were going to tap her out.
Oh, my God. My face is beat red. And she's like, does that hurt? It hurts a lot.
She's lying. She knows it hurts.
Yes,
oh,
yes.
man.
What a career for a
There
masochist.
is some discomfort.
Oh, I mean, but I got my 120 degrees range of motion and my 0 out front. Those were the therapy goals. So I'm all done with physical therapy now.
Oh, good.
Go back see the doctor in June. And
Well, if you can climb the stairs and even better yet, go down the stairs one at a time.
I can. Yeah, I can. I
Here
came
to
up-
this office, given the length of stairs and the height of the stairs here, you'll be doing good.
It only took me 55 seconds to get up the stairs. It used to take me a minute and 40 seconds to do stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I get better as time passes. So
Oh, good. Good.
So, what is the nature of the degeneration that causes you to need a knee and a hip?
well, total cartilage loss. In both instances, arthritis, cartilage, but it's all from one too many hard landings in the past.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps will do that to you too,
Yeah.
by the way. So depending on what you do, if you're pushing a typewriter, it's not likely you're going to need a knee replacement at
probably
some
not.
point. You know, but if you go to airborne school and the crosswind hits you and you end up in the top of a pine tree, you're gonna get injured. You know.
Yeah. If not then, later, somehow
Oh.
it's going to come back to get you.
But, that happened to me. My foot hooked on the top of the pine tree, and the wind was pushing and spun me around and just tore my knee right up.
Oh,
So
man, that's nasty.
I had back then I had the what do they call it? Arthroscopic surgery, and the surgeon who did it, he just said, he was a Navy commander. He says, "Yeah, this isn't going to be a good outcome for you down the road." I said, "Oh,
Thanks, Doc.
yeah, thanks for the help, sir."
We're just giving you a little heads up, you know. Give you the sit rep.
Yep, that's definitely a sit rep. Yes, after action report of
After
sorts,
action
you know.
report, yeah.
And
Yeah, your
pre-action.
knee is done.
I'm tore up.
I'm busted up. All right, we got a couple minutes. We can squeeze in some WTFs real quick. I know you had a couple over there.
Oh, yes. I think the biggest
Not
one...
that tree thing wasn't a WTF.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Obama's little threat to Britain, where he had the presser with Prime Minister Cameron yesterday.
we're going to war with the British now.
And he's saying, it's in the U.S.'s best interest and in the Britain's best interest not to leave the European Union, because then you'll go back to the back of the queue, the back of the line. And I'm
We'll
going,
see. That
Wait,
probably
wait, wait.
just that
coming
cinches
from
it.
a black guy,
That's
they
interesting.
knew
Say
what
that?
it was going to... Yeah, he actually said that. And,
It's in the Americans' interest not to leave the EU. I didn't know we were part of the EU.
No, for Britain, because
Right.
they're getting ready to do their vote to get out. And I actually
Good
think
for
that
them.
they should.
I think
Yeah.
that cinches the deal. I think Obama just pretty much capped it. They're going to leave the EU now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, London's Boris
Could have been his plan all
Johnson, I think his name is, basically said, well, what do you want from somebody who's half Kenyan?
Did
He hates, this is the post-colonialism coming out, the bias. And it's like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, this is going to it gets better every day. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
because they don't have any reason to be nice to him.
No,
You know,
no, considering
they really don't care.
no, and he's made it quite clear he doesn't care for them either.
A lot of people aren't aware. I got to know a lot of the British Armed Forces guys, and those guys are, I respect those guys, So, I mean, I've heard all the jokes. Yeah, what are they going to do? Come over here, invade us, and slap us? No, they're tough guys, But, yeah, that's really funny. That's hilarious.
I really, and I'm looking at this. It's like this is the guy who originally said it is not America's role to tell other countries what to do.
Except now.
Except
When it's America's role to tell other countries what to do.
No,
to
it's
do.
when Obama thinks it's his role
Well,
to tell.
he's
everybody.
America, so yes, that applies.
Yeah, well, most of us understand that he doesn't speak for most of us.
No, he doesn't, but unfortunately he's got the position. So
Yeah.
The rest of the world has to sit there and go, God, stupid Americans.
Yeah. Then the other one was, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe. He's a Clintonista.
Oh, yes, I remember him well.
And he just made by executive order, don't you know? No phone, but great pen. Decided that he was unilaterally going to let all felons now vote. Virginia is one of those states where felons are not allowed to vote after they've done their time. And we can have a great philosophical discussion about, if you've done your time, do you get all of your rights back? And in most states, most felons can't vote, along with a whole host of other things. But he just decided to do this unilaterally. Just before the presidential election, 210,000 felons. And studies have shown that, guess what party they generally vote for?
Oh,
Let me
yes.
think.
Yeah.
Libertarian Party. No,
Right.
I got that wrong, didn't I?
Slightly. Yeah, Democrats. And Hillary Clinton did say, I'm proud of my friend. Now, here's the kicker. It specifically states in the Virginia Constitution that felons are not allowed to vote. So, guys, do you think that we're really heading into a post-constitutional phase of America, which basically is going to say, we elect a despot every 4 years?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're
pretty
seeing
much.
the chips fall that way because, it's too bad they didn't do that in Michigan because then Kwame Kilpatrick could vote, but so
I mean, it does have big ramifications. I mean, we here at the Grok have almost just two contingents of folks in the presidentials. Those of us who are supporting Ted Cruz and folks who are voting or have voted for Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump.
Hey, well, on that note, we're going to talk about we are going to go to our next guest because he's come to talk to us about the convention and the possible effort to hijack it and some other fun stuff. And Skip's going to call him.
Isn't my segue just perfect?
It's
time.
Awesome. It's like you were looking at the clock or something. It's kind of scary. So, everybody hang in there, and we'll be right back.
It's the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
I have stayed out of this race, and I have remained neutral. As chairman of the Republican Convention, my job is to ensure that there is integrity in the process, that the rules are followed by the rule book. That means it is not my job to tell delegates what they should do. But I've got a message to relay today. We have too much work to do in the House to allow this speculation to swirl or to have my motivations questioned. So let me be clear. I do not want, nor will I accept the nomination for our party. So let me speak directly to the delegates on this. If no candidate has a majority on the first ballot, I believe that you should only choose from a person who has actually participated in the primary. Count me out. I simply believe that if you want to be the nominee for our party, to be the president, you should actually run for it. I chose not to do this. Therefore, I should not be considered, period, end of story.
All right, welcome back to Grok Talk. My name's Steve McDonald. I'm here with Skip Murphy and guest co-host Rick Olson of the Londonderry Fish and Game Club, Grok Talk contributor, and many other things too long to list. But we're not here to talk about him. Sorry, Rick. we can talk about you later. How about that?
Yeah.
We're here to talk about Mark Meckler, who's the president of Citizens for Self-Government, and he's come to talk to us about something that Mr. Paul Ryan just talked about, which is the convention, the idea that they might want to hijack it, which of course they want to hijack it. Skip, go ahead, real quick.
Yeah. Didn't he say that I don't want the nomination for Speaker of the House, too?
He did. So, Mark, good morning.
Good morning. How are you gentlemen today?
Good. We're doing great. Thanks so much. So, you just heard the remarks of Speaker Ryan. Do you think he's serious?
Well, I do, and here's the reason I think he's serious. I don't trust any politician, so it's not that I trust what he says, but I do know that Paul Ryan's a pretty smart guy, and I do believe he understands that if he or even anybody else like him, what I would call a third-party interloper here, were to try to obtain the nomination, that it would essentially be the death of the Republican Party.
So do you think the rest of the establishment agrees with him?
I think they're coming along. I would say it depends. If you'd asked me that question a month ago, I would have said no. But I think they're coming to understand that if they want to have a party, if they expect the party to survive the November election intact, that they're going to have to go along with what they don't like, which is somebody who is essentially an outsider taking the nomination for the Republican presidency.
This is Skip, and thanks for coming on the show. And I know that you were one of the leaders when the Tea Party movement started. We started Granite Grok just about a year before that movement really started. So we're sort of contemporaries in that standpoint. But I'm looking at this going, I'm not so sure that the party is going to stay together, period, especially here in New Hampshire, this animus between what we call here the liberty and freedom side of the Republican Party versus the establishment side has been getting to almost a critical point where it's just going to shatter here in New Hampshire. And now with this presidential race, I'm seeing almost the same thing, that we've got lots of factions ready to take their ball and go home. And so how do you see it?
Well, I agree with you on that. I think that analysis is correct, and I think it's correct in most of the country. The question is, what does it look like if and when it shatters? And I would propose, I've been asked since the beginning of the movement, I'm sure you guys have too, is there going to be a third party? And my response is, look, if the Republicans don't get it together, there could be a third party, but that would be really bad for the nation. And the reason I say that is it would take a very long time to build a party apparatus that could take any offices on a national basis. And so I think it would hurt the conservative cause. Parties are meant to be filled with ideas and principles, and the Republican Party is built on a set of principles that are good. It just doesn't operate that way. And so our job as activists on the ground in states all across the country, I've been in 34 states this year, is to take over the party apparatus, not necessarily to abandon it. And what I'm seeing, election by election, year by year, all across the country, more and more the party apparatus is being taken over by folks like us, and it's becoming a truly conservative, liberty-oriented party, but that takes time to do.
We've been we've been battling the GOP establishment in the state, and of course we have Governor Sununu at the head of our pile of crap in New Hampshire, and so it's been a tough slog because he has connections in D.C., so they can pull the plug on money on anybody who doesn't toe the line. But it's been a battle, and it's been getting really, really ugly, which means something to me. It means that we're somewhere near a cusp where we may be able to push this beast over and really start to make a difference. We made some inroads a few years back by getting a chairman elected that was favorable to our position, who was then ousted by the party.
Well, he was a Tea Party leader.
He was a Tea Party leader. He got the GOP chairmanship, and then they found a way to run him out of town.
Yeah, they pulled the plug on all the money.
They did, exactly. Yep. And so we need to I guess really what we need to do is we need to find money. We need to find a way to get money in around the GOP machine. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do, and I've seen it happen successfully around the country, and here's the issue. It's not the same old money. It's not the same old people, because they're not going to give guys like us money. It's just not the way it works, right? They like the establishment. They like the perks that come with the establishment. But there are a lot of folks of means who stayed on the sidelines of politics for decades because they don't like that game. And they don't see politics as a good investment because what they're looking for as a return on their investment is more liberty, more freedom, and less government. They're not looking for personal favor. And so those folks are coming onto the playing field all across the country into politics. And the key is, as you take over a party, to ally with folks like those and to have those folks in place before you take over the party. Because what you describe, I've seen happen in several states where there's a rebel faction that manages to take over the party, and then the money just goes away and everything just falls apart.
Well, the one thing that we did learn in the last election cycle is that the GOP establishment ran a couple of candidates here in New Hampshire, Mark, that basically kind of insulted. I'm not sure I can come up with any better word. Grossly insulted the base. We had Walt Havenstein basically call the Tea Party all teabaggers and never apologized for it. And we here at Granite Rock made sure that people heard that message over and over and over again. He was asked probably at least a couple dozen times, will you apologize now that you know what that slur means? And he refused. He lost in the general election. Then we had Scott Brown. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Then we had Scott Brown, who was running from formerly the U.S. Senator from Massachusetts that the Tea Party helped to put into office. Then he came up here, tried to run again, and tried to out-abortion the current Senator Jeanne Shaheen.
Reigning champion of abortion.
Right, and and he really severely ticked off a lot of the conservatives here in the state who are also pro-life, and he did it with wild abandon. I mean, he was on the airwaves with his pro-abortion message, and he lost his race too. So the message that was learned was that we may not be able to beat you, but we can certainly make you hurt and lose.
Well, and that's really an important message because they cannot win without the base. And they do have to be able to cater to the base. And the base actually has a winning message. So you're right, we may not be able to beat you because we may not have the money and resources, but they're going to have to come around if they want to start winning elections. They're going to have to come around to the policies and the kind of principles that the base represents.
Now, you've been around the block here a bit. I want to ask you this question because I see a lot of parallels in the first 15, 16 years of this century as the last century politically, when you had Roosevelt and Beveridge and the Bull Moose Party and the progressive movement on the right battling with the progressive movement on the left for power. Ultimately, that led us to somebody by the name of Calvin Coolidge, who was awesome. Do we have a Coolidge in our future? Please say yes.
I do think we do. I mean, I can't point to who Coolidge is for our future, but it's inevitable. In other words, government has grown to the point where even internal government agencies, Office of Management and Budget and the GAO, say this is unsustainable. Yeah, Coolidge isn't much remembered. You guys remember him, and a lot of us on the right in the movement remember Coolidge because he's the guy that they say didn't do anything. And they say he didn't do anything because what he didn't do was build big programs and spend lots of money, right? He is the guy who learned to live within the budget and cut the federal government. And so I think somebody is going to fulfill that role inevitably simply because numbers are numbers and what cannot continue will not continue.
Well, almost $20 trillion of national debt, where the debt service itself is the fourth largest right now item in the budget. I mean, it can't, to use the Greens' words, it is unsustainable. But nobody seems to. I am just absolutely awestruck by how little the national debt play has been gotten. And I'm going to be honest here. We here at Granite Rock have endorsed as a blog site Ted Cruz, and we've interviewed him several times. But also, our friend in the room here is also a Donald Trump supporter.
I'm a dissenter, yes. I want to burn it down.
But he's one of the more sensible ones because he shakes his head when some of this weird crap happens with Trump. But anyway, go ahead.
And I'm looking at this going, all right, with Ted Cruz, I mean, we've interviewed him, 4 or 5 times at this point?
Yeah.
And so we feel fairly confident that he might be a silent Cal. But and you know that I'm not a bomb thrower when it comes to the Donald. But in listening to him lately, I'm going, I don't know what would happen if he becomes the nominee and going forward. But we do know what we're going to get with a Bernie Sanders, the open socialist / communist.
Where's that
face punch nobody button? Goes to the Kremlin for their honeymoon unless they're an arch communist. And given that Hillary is an acolyte of Saul Alinsky, who also was a communist, so we've got an open communist and a silent communist running on the Democrat side. I mean, how hard is it going to be when already the executive branch agencies all think that they're governments in and of themselves, and the Republicans in Congress are not doing a thing to stop it?
Yeah, and I don't expect them to do a thing to stop it. Look, your analysis on the candidates, I wish I could tell you I had something brilliant to add to it, but I read it almost identical. In other words, if I had to choose right now, if I had to pull a lever, it would probably be for Ted Cruz. If I look at Donald Trump, I would say I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do, but I like some of the rhetoric. I like the burn it down kind of rhetoric because I think that's where I'm at. My big caveat with Trump is I actually have no idea what he would do the day he got into office. And it's really hard to say based on his history. You got to judge a person based upon their actions in history, and it's really hard to say how he would govern. I find that a little bit scary. But I'm less scared of that than I am of a communist presidency, which is, I agree with you. I think that's what you get out of Bernie or Hillary.
Yep.
Oh yeah, big time. Because you're looking at, do I leap off this cliff without a rope, or do I tie the Trump rope to myself and see if it holds? That's what it comes down to.
Well, I think once Bernie's out of the race, he can go back to Bread and Puppets Theater over there, Burlington, Vermont. You ever heard about that, Bread and Puppets?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to do a blog on that. But
I mean, the problem with Bernie even getting out of the race, though, is you can be darn sure that he's going to play a prominent role in whatever eventual administration she puts together if she's elected. And that's the flavor of the day in the Democratic Party. It's not your papa's Democratic Party. This is the Democratic Socialists or the Democratic Communists of America.
Yeah, how about Bernie next to Bill on the Supreme Court? Eat!
I mean, you're right. He's not going to get out of this race. He raised more money than Hillary this last quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, and it is, you have to look at it from a couple of standpoints. One, he's raising massive amounts of money from very small donations, which shows that you don't have to have the big money guys to be successful. But then on the flip side, for us who are constitutionalist, liberty and freedom kind of folks, I'm thinking, how many people really want socialism here in the United States?
My neighbor.
Money's no longer a metric. And when we factor in John Kasich, you know, the man of La Mancha, the Don Quixote of American politics, you know. I mean, there's if anybody's fighting windmills here, he is. You know, he's out there talking to people. He's glassy-eyed, the man with the perpetual frown, talking about he can be the nominee. And, you know, where the heck is this guy coming from?
Hey,
you know, I mean, well, he's an enigma.
Yeah, Mark, I got a question for you on John Kasich, where, you know, I put up the image where he agrees with Bernie and Hillary on 5 major issues. And now he's saying, being reported today, that the Washington Post is all in favor of him for the editorial board, because he's now saying the Republicans ought to be adopting some of the Democrat issues. And I'm going, what the heck? And now toss in, if we go to a brokered convention, does he even have a shot at this? I mean, this is scaring me. Here's a Democrat. Well, I'll stick with just Kasich for right now.
Don Quixote.
Yeah, but basically a Democrat in Republican. Oh, gosh, we got lots of those kind of people, don't we?
Yeah, Congress is full of them.
You know, and does he have a chance? I think the answer is no. And, you know, there's, to me, a lot of this is much ado about nothing about this brokered convention idea. And here's why. You know, it takes the delegates to set the rules. So the rules are different at every convention. There is a rule, Rule 40B, and 40 was put in place during the Romney camp, and it was put in place to prevent somebody who hadn't won at least 8 states from taking the nomination, preventing a brokered convention, right? And that rule is in place right now. It can be changed by the delegates, but the delegates, the vast majority, 70-80% of the delegates, will be controlled by the Cruz and the Trump camps. You got to ask yourself the question, are they just going to decide to be nice guys and change Rule 40 to give John Kasich a chance to be the nominee? Yeah, exactly. That's not going to happen, right? Nobody's going to describe either of those guys as the nice guy who just want to let somebody else in.
No, we want Marion Barry.
That would be just as rational a choice as John Kasich. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just don't believe that that's even a plausible scenario. What's going to happen at that convention, they're going to go in, nobody's going to have the majority, they're going to go to multiple rounds of voting, and whoever can convince the most delegates that they're the ones that can win the nomination, they're going to win that nomination. And I wouldn't predict right now. I think it's pretty obvious right now that Cruz has the better delegate operation, operating according to the rules. But if you ask yourself who's the better salesman, who can whip the delegates into a frenzy, that seems to be Donald Trump. So, you know, right now, to me, at convention, it's a toss-up.
Well, right now, the numbers are saying that Donald Trump's going to be 57 delegates short for the first ballot. How do you think the second round's going to go, based on what you just said?
Well, I would say if I looked at it on straight politics, which if you look at anything on straight politics this year, you end up being wrong. But I'm going to do the straight political analysis first and say Ted Cruz has an incredible ground operation. He knows how to work the system. He's got a great team. His delegate operation headed by Ken Cuccinelli, really good conservative guy, and a bunch of other folks who are working it. And they're going to have things lined up pretty well. And here's the huge caveat. To me, this campaign is coming down more to marketing and branding than politics. And I've never seen anything like it. Donald Trump is a marketing master, right? I mean, it's just incredible. The guy knows how to build a brand. He knows how to craft a message that resonates and stay on message. And in that convention hall, there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing. Remember, in that convention hall, this is not like an election, like a normal election where all kinds of FEC rules apply. You can essentially straight out buy delegates. They can fly them around the country. They can give them rooms in Mar-a-Lago. And if he's only 57 delegates away, it is entirely possible that Trump manipulates stuff and bribes people straight out and convinces them that he's the guy, and he ends up with the nomination. So I think it can go either way. It could play straight politics, or it can go to branding, marketing, and political chicanery, and it could end up being Donald Trump.
We got about a minute. Real quick, let's say Cruz does win the second ballot by some magical whatever. Anyway, the delegate game or whatever it is. How does he get Trump to go along and not lose that entire block of voters who have been pretty militant and willing to repeat anything the guy says, that Mr. Trump says about him? And so, I don't know, how does that work out?
I think right now, if I were to say right now, I think it doesn't work out well. I think it works out really poorly. I think Cruz, the place where I would say he's really failing is in this narrative game, in the marketing game. And he's not giving them a reason to go along. And Trump is laying out this narrative that this is stealing and this is cheating and this is dishonest. And I think the Cruz camp is doing a very poor job of countering that narrative. And that voting bloc is going to be repressed. And they're not going to be enthusiastic. They're not going to get money. They're not going to work for Cruz. I think ultimately they'll probably vote for him in a general election because they don't want communists in the White House. But I just think it's a long hoe for him, and I think, if you guys have him on the air, you got to ask him why he's not countering that narrative.
All right, we got to go. Thanks so much. How do people reach you or find out what you're doing?
People can go to selfgovern.com and find out how to take the government back for the people.
All right, thank you, sir. Mark Meckler, you have a great weekend.
You too.
Thanks, bye-bye. All right, we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back with us.
Hi, this is Rich Girard, host of Girard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GirardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
We are Grok Talk. Thanks again to Mark Meckler for spending some time with us, talk about the primary, the race, the convention. Good conversation.
You having hot flashes? I mean, you're constantly doing this with your T-shirt.
It's a cheap T-shirt, and it doesn't sit right on my shoulders.
Oh, okay. My wife went through the hot flashes, and she was always doing this.
It's like you can't get it to sit right on your neck. It's what you get when you buy it. It was free. I mean, UPS gave it to me when I worked there.
Yeah, it looks
the fabric's okay, but just the cut of it isn't right.
I was going to say, is there camel hair lined or something?
Yes, I'm like getting the hairs the right way.
It's a little bit long in the shoulder.
And when I'm hot, I do
the neck
this too,
hole seems to be a little large.
It's just not right. It's not right. Damn it. All right. So let us move forward in the world and realm of politics. We have no specific subject for this segment, so throw something out there and let's see where we go.
I would say let's have the discussion because, Rick is one of our few Trumpians. There's lots of words out. What would you use to describe your brand of Trump supporter? Trumpian? Trumpkins?
Trumpkins, I've heard that, Trumpkins.
And some people just really don't like it at all. And I'm just curious.
Where Trump is concerned, if you openly state on some social media venue, okay, that you're a Trump supporter, you are now exposing yourself to have your intelligence questioned. You're called retarded. You're called. I can't even go down through the litany of things that you're called. There's something grossly, and it becomes personal. It's no longer about the fact that you're supporting him. It's about you and your choices. Everything in your life is wrong if you're supporting Trump. And I guess on some level, I resent that, and I'm thinking to myself, why? I mean, this is this isn't any different than, what about all the people that voted for McGovern or supported McGovern? Nobody called them idiots or retards. I mean, you could argue that the guy was a socialist because he was advocating that everybody in America should get what was it, $1,000 or something like that?
And
something
he also
crazy.
wanted to raise taxes too.
Yeah, he wanted to raise taxes, and you got Bernie Sanders out there wanting to raise the minimum wage and create this whole big social welfare state. When in fact we have it all on display in Europe, and we've seen how well that worked.
Well, we look at Venezuela and Cuba. That we see the really bad effects of having socialism, and yet I know Bernie keeps looking over to the Nordic countries where democratic socialism really took hold, but they've been moving more towards free market capitalism.
Absolutely.
And especially having brought upon themselves this mass migration where now they are changing their population. And they're going to, both you and I are of Swedish extraction, so we've got something invested in this.
And one of the joys of democratic socialism in Sweden is that when you have lots of rapes, you can suppress that news.
Yes,
and that's what they've been doing.
Yep.
Well, until the New Year's rapes in Cologne,
what
Germany.
A nice cologne you have.
Yes, it finally broke. I mean, and that's when it became a big problem. And now you're seeing all these countries, Sweden included. Denmark is saying, we're going to take your... No, is it Denmark or Holland that said, okay, when you come in, we're taking your valuables to help pay for this? I mean, all of a sudden,
just another reason not to go to Denmark.
Yeah, the agreement that said free travel within the EU has kind of said, okay, everybody's putting their walls back up because they realize that with mass migration, it doesn't work. It's like what Milton Friedman said. You can have either open borders or a welfare state. You can't have both at the same time. And of course, our administration is saying, sure we will. They haven't learned Thatcher's aphorism of sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
Absolutely.
They haven't run out yet. That's the problem.
Well, the problem there is that when Democrats say we are a wealthy nation, they forget two things. One, they forget that we are almost $20 trillion in the hole as a nation, thanks to the federal government. And two, they view all of our money as the nation's money. They are always looking at it from a collectivist standpoint. So from that standpoint, they're absolutely right. We are still a wealthy nation because we, the individuals, have built that wealth through our time, talent, and effort. But they have no problem, as Bernie says, with his 90% income tax level. It's not yours.
That's, I'm so sick of the feel the burn. Feel the burn. Yeah, well, I wish you'd just catch on fire. Be done with it, I want to speak directly to the Trump supporters out there right now. Listen, folks, if it unfolds that Ted Cruz is the nominee, you got to be all in, okay? You got to support Ted Cruz. And I don't say that lightly. Okay, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm all in for Trump. But if it comes down to it and Ted Cruz is the nominee, we got to support him. Think about this. Okay, your guy didn't win. I understand that's disappointing. My guy didn't win. That's disappointing. But at the end of the day, okay, we need a real president that will look at conservative constitutional principles. And you got to admit, nobody in this whole race has said more about constitutional principles than Ted Cruz. Okay.
And I love the analogy that you had.
The rope?
The rope. But, I am all about the principles. I have been that way since we started Granite Rock. And I left the Republican Party because, as Mark Meckler, our first guest in the last segment, said, the party is supposed to be about principles. Yep. And he just kind of glossed over, well, it hasn't been acting that way. Well, we've known here in New Hampshire, the party as a whole hasn't been acting like that for quite some time. And, I listened to some of the stuff that Trump's been saying. Again, I have not been a Trump basher. I have held back.
Sure.
I have actually applauded him in the beginning for getting rid of the
Groksters have done a great job on Trump bashing.
We have a designated Trump basher.
Yes, we do.
And that's okay, because rule number 2 says write whatever you want as long as you don't violate rule number 1. See, right. I don't have a plethora of micromanagement rules for the authors at Granite Rock as well as for the commenters. I don't bounce people for that. So I just let it go, even though my former my co-founder is a little bit upset at it because he is also a Trump supporter.
Right.
Come and defend your guy.
Yep.
That's all. You know, you
But
have as
I'm
much
looking-
right to say what you want as they do. Just keep the F-bombs out. Yeah, we're good.
So
you know?
I've left the Republican Party, so I feel no angst at all when people say, well, you have to support the Republican nominee. No, I
You
don't.
don't have to.
No. And just like in the last election with Walt Havenstein and Scott Brown, I wasn't going to vote for the Democrat because they're even worse. I just didn't vote in that one. And
Right.
I understood the ramifications thereof. But, Steve, I don't know, that rope around your waist with Donald Trump, again, he's now talking about the transgender bathroom stuff. And I'm going, really? And he's talking about the abortion stuff, and I'm going, really? I mean, he seems to be solid on Second Amendment, and I think his sons are going to keep him that way because they are big Second Amendment folks.
Yep.
But I'm looking at, all right, he's already for taxes, more on the rich, and you could say, well, Skip, that's for your best interest. Let somebody else pay your freight. Well, no, that's not the way self-government is supposed to work. And I'm looking at some of the other stuff and going, I've spent years saying, you have to earn my vote, and I want you to give me something to vote for. I'm past the time where I don't want to vote for the least worst.
Right.
And yet, Steve, as you put it, I may have to do that. I am
For
scared.
those of you who missed the analogy, I said you're on the edge of a cliff, and you have a choice between Bernie and Hillary, which is jumping right off the cliff, or Trump tying a rope to yourself, if this is the way you think, leaping off and hoping it holds you. Because that's where we are.
Yep.
And I would say that you're better off just tying the rope to yourself and taking that chance. Because you still have your state elections, you still have your governors, you still have your state representatives, you can still affect local control. States can tell the federal government to go screw.
Yep.
They absolutely can, and enough of them do it, the government can't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah, well, we're seeing that in several different states. We see Tennessee, a legislator is now suing the federal government for the Department of Education because of all the unfunded mandates over these Dear Colleague letters that don't have the force of law, but they do have the force of, we're not going to give you federal money,
Right,
which is basically the same thing. But I'm looking here at, here we go again. Here we've got the Republicans not fighting against D.C., but bringing it in. Hobby horse, here we go again. New Hampshire State Senate Republicans implementing Obamacare. So part of what you said, Steve, sounds good, but when the Republican Party has just become the junior lackeys of the Democrat welfare state, what can we do?
Because you just have to keep finding candidates to run, and you have to keep trying.
But we're back to the thing that we talked about with Mark Meckler. Money. Where do we get it? I would love to be able to run.
There's plenty of money in New Hampshire. There's plenty of money for conservatives in New Hampshire. The people who have it aren't parting with it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We have lots of people who've run for high-level office in this state who have gobs of money. There's buckets full of it. And they could very easily back solid candidates. But they have to get past the party machine. They have to get past in their head, that they have to, or are subject to that machine. They have to go, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I got a great idea. A new and improved Republican Party with conservatives and libertarians running a small government and driving a message that makes that government smaller and tells the federal government to go screw. And Mark was telling us there are places they've done it. It's been successful. It can be done. We just haven't been able to do it.
Well,
in New Hampshire, I have long contended for the last 10, 15 years, the New Hampshire Republican Party, everybody eats a turd sandwich. And the argument is what kind of bread we're making it with, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's really where we're at. And I hate to characterize it like that, but it just doesn't get the visual out there like that.
And it would be real simple if the Republican establishment and its elected leaders, both within the party and in Concord, would do one thing. Just do as you say your principles are. That's all I ask. Is that such a big deal?
Now, by the way, for the Trump supporters who aren't sure what to do about the transgender bathroom thing or whatever, the correct answer, and Mr. Trump, if you're listening, write this down, okay? The correct answer is North Carolina is a sovereign state. The people elected a legislature who got a message that said they wanted this kind of legislation, and they enacted it. They get to deal with the consequences on their own. It's their problem. They have a means for correcting it if they want to, or they can live with it. That's the correct answer. It's none of the federal government's goddamn business what North Carolina does with its bathrooms. None.
Right, none.
Well, there you go. You've got Obama in London, outside the country, saying those states, put Mississippi in there as well, need to have those laws revoked. I mean, so there's the federal government stepping in, crossing the line of federalism. That without federalism, we basically aren't any different than Bernie's cry: "Make America more European."
Right.
Where the individual provinces of each of those countries are subdivisions, just like here in New Hampshire, where the towns and cities are mere subdivisions of the state. I mean, is that really what we want? Democrats certainly want that because central power is easier if you can control everything. And so you're right. Go pound sands should say the states, but I can't even. I just get so frustrated with the Republican Party that won't stand up for its ideals.
And I was going to say, if the federal government starts saying we're not going to send you money, then you get your county sheriffs to start kicking out the EPA, the Department of Energy, and every other freaking bureaucrat in your state. Get out. Your office lease is expired. Get the hell out of my state. You don't get to work here anymore. Go find a job in D.C. We're not going to pay you. We're not going to let you get paid here. We don't need you. And everybody's like, oh, it's the money. They'll take the money. They took the money from you. Find a way to get them. Hurt them. They can be hurt. You can tell them no. You have to have really huge ones to do it. But you can do it.
Well, look at the school district down in the southern part of the state that told the feds, we're not going to participate in the school lunch program anymore. Another story came out this week where the people voted, we're not doing this anymore. Now the feds are steamed at this little, it's a good size, I can't remember the name where it is, but it's a good-sized lunch program, a pretty big school district. And they said, we're tired of throwing away the food that the kids won't eat. It's costing us money, and we're going to go back because our kids deserve better. And the feds are all up in arms about it, and they're already trying to make noises saying, you will participate.
Yeah, they're tying federal education money to this. They want to completely deny funding to anybody who won't bend the knee.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this. Is this the way that American government should be acting? This is not American freedom. This is socialism rearing its head and showing us what real socialism is, which is everything in the state, nothing outside of the state.
This is a great illustration of local/social issues tying in to big money and the federal government. And there's a certain irony where it seems like New Hampshire, we have these guys, and I won't mention any names.
Oh, name them.
Nah. Their job, their vocation is, you see them jump from one camp to the next camp. Political operatives paid. This is how they earn their living.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet they wonder why they got to keep making the jump.
They're whores.
Yeah, basically. And it's because, they're not true to any set core principles. You want to talk about the school lunch program or something like that. They're talking. Only thing that's going in their wheelhouse is the statistics. How's my guy doing? What's the public opinion polls say? We've got to get support for this. Blah blah blah. It's like after a while it sounds like wah wah wah. I'm talking to Charlie Brown's teacher, and it's ridiculous. And I just get so sick of it.
All right, we are getting ready to go into the top of the hour break. 5-minute news read. Stick around and listen because there's something about central planners and watersheds and the town of Windham in there, which you might find amusing. Some things that happened in the town, and the planners weren't real happy with the outcome. Stupid voters was the problem, apparently. So anyway, listen in. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Raw Talk.
This week, Tea Party co-founder Mark Meckler joins us to talk about the threats and challenges of a brokered GOP convention. Doug Sacklaben from Club for Growth returns to discuss primary politics. And our special guest host, complete with a fresh set of new knees, is Londonderry Fish and Game Club President Richard Olson. There are plenty of other topics on tap, including our take on the news of the week. Stay tuned. Grok Talk starts in just a few minutes.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Watershed protection zones sound nice, and we do want to protect any given watersheds up to a point, but they have become tools for unelected regional planners to behave like, well, tools to local taxpayers. In some of the more liberal readouts across the fruited plain, watershed ordinances have resulted in rainwater runoff taxes on property owners, that is to say, new taxes charged by the municipality on top of existing taxes for rain that runs off your roof or your driveway. Before they can do that, they have to have rules in place that define these things as in a manner suitable to the end goal of taxing the crap out of people to pay for even more planning. The only control you typically have over that sort of thing is at the ballot box. And last month in Windham, New Hampshire, voters told the planners to shove it, not once, but twice. There were 2 petitioned warrants on the ballot. The one the planners wanted failed, and the one they didn't want passed. Planners were none too happy, and according to a report by Ray Carbone writing at the Eagle Tribune, planning board members Margaret Chrysler and alternate member Kathleen DeFruscia told Windham selectmen they wanted a do-over. The do-over would be to call a special meeting to revisit the ordinance because, among other things, the planners felt certain the voters were too stupid to understand it. According to the report, the planners felt that some voters have misunderstood language on the town meeting ballot indicating that the planning board opposed the ordinance. Only they could get a special meeting where only a fraction of the more activist population would show up, they could ignore the vote they didn't like and get the vote they wanted. To the credit of the Windham Board of Selectmen, they said no. Voters had spoken, and there would be another election coming up, an ample opportunity for another petition.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Scott Morales, writing for GraniteRock.com this week, reported that the Treasury Department intends to replace the Democrat Party founder on the $20 bill with a gun-toting, heavily Christian, liberty-loving Republican. He writes, "Goodbye, Democrat Andrew Trail of Tears Jackson. Hello, Harriet Underground Railroad Tubman." Scott continues, "Interesting. Both were involved with migrating people. It's just that the Republican was migrating people to freedom and liberty, and the Democrat was marching people to foreign territory a few states away through treacherous conditions and disease." You can read this and a lot more at GraniteRock.com. Steve McDonald here. You want proof that Democrats are evil? Just look at the Democrats' Obamacare contraceptive mandate. Federal government trying to force religious organizations like Little Sisters of the Poor and Priests for Life to make chemical abortions administratively available to any woman who works for them, even though it violates their religious conscience and they consider it to be murder. At the same time, the Obama administration has provided, without much if any fight, the very same exemptions these religious groups want to organizations like Visa, Pepsi, and even Exxon. Religious groups have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to take their case to the Supreme Court, and Exxon gets a pass. That's right, a big evil oil company gets an exemption, and Democrats don't even like them. Like I said, Democrats are evil. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
No, I'm not going to buy it. We're going to talk about guns. Guns. Anyway, thanks to Mark Meckler again. Doug Sacklevin's coming up in about 20 minutes, and then we have Jane Cormier in to tell us how things are going at the protest at Planned Parenthood today, Right to Life protest. And but before we get to any of that, we're going to talk about guns. Guns. There we go.
Yeah, turn on the mic.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Do your job. You had one job.
I had more than one job.
Okay. So just before we came on, we decided we'll talk guns, and I brought up Tracking Point's new gun. You know, the gun that Democrats hate because it makes everybody a sniper. I mean, they came out a couple of years ago with this gorgeous gun full of ballistics computers that attached to your phone by Wi-Fi, and it did all kinds of nice stuff. But basically, it did all the figuring out if you knew weather computer, ballistics comp, as long as you could tell it what round you were using, the whole bit. Yeah,
Google's going to invent a shooterless gun soon, right? I mean, why not?
You pull the trigger and it doesn't fire until you finally move the gun to where the ballistic computer tells you to move it, and then all of a sudden, bang, and you're a sniper at 1,200 yards.
Well,
now they got a cheaper one. Instead of $28,000, it's $17,000.
Well, Fish and Game has had the foresight to already come out with rules about these types of guns. And the sticking point there was defining what I forget the term they were using. I can't remember it now, but the telemetry on these guns. For example, I have one rifle. It has a scope that's light gathering and has lighted reticles, and it has a rangefinder built in. So when you're looking down through the scope, the distance pops up.
Yeah.
Is that defined as a smart gun? There's no clear answer. And at the same time, they meshed it in with the issue of automated game cameras. You put a game camera out in the woods, and when a deer steps in front of it, it sends a video message to your phone. Hey, look, there's a deer in front of your game camera. So they came out with rules for that. So, the smart guns have already been addressed in the hunting community, i.e., you can't use them. So if you want to take a deer from 1,200 yards, you can't do it in New Hampshire. Not that you're going to have a clear path at 1,200 yards. We've got too many woods and trees. But, smart guns, it's a topic of discussion everywhere, and it's freaking people out.
See, I don't look at it as freaking out coming from the technical side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been doing computers since first couple of years in high school. This doesn't bother me at all. I look at it as, I'll take I am not a great shooter.
You're a gun guy.
Yeah, huh?
If you're not a gun guy.
Well, I'm not as into it as Rick is because I just can't.
But enough. But
I am enough of a gun guy that says...
Take your average, everyday, Martha Fuller Clark-esque type person who's anti-gun.
She'd never have a gun in her hands, period. I'm looking at it as I'm not that great of a shot. I'll take every advantage I can get.
But that's why she's afraid of it, because she thinks it turns you into a sniper. And you can shoot her before she hits that pedestrian on the sidewalk.
Right. Just mows them over,
Yeah, but then that comes back to the phrase that I always say. law-abiding citizen. I am
Exactly.
a law-abiding citizen.
I agree completely. And I'm just
So
just
why
looking at-
shouldn't I be able to have that along with my A10?
Of course, they're not concerned about the driverless car thing, which is the same thing in theory, but cars are more dangerous.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
No, they want the autonomous cars because by government fiat or legislation, they're going to have that kill switch. That's what I fear, that they're going to come along. And I like driving. I like driving long distances. I like driving a manual. I like driving fast. I don't race, but I like driving. And I fear the day with I can appreciate the autonomous technology and what it all goes into to get that, but I don't want to be told until I become too feeble. I don't want to be told, well, for safety's sake, you can't drive anything anymore. And then I am at the mercy of government that can tell they built everything else into the regulations for building a car. Why can't they say, we're going to do an Amber Alert on your car? Stop.
so guns.
Yep. I mean, smart guns. I don't really know how to address that issue. It's a sign of the times that technology's coming. People are developing it. I'm sure there's an application. Yay and amen. But a gun guy like me, I'm a certified firearms instructor. I actually have a piece of paper where I had to take a course and follow a regimen and do, a test to become a firearms instructor. I've always ascribed to the basic tenet that firearm is a tool. It's an extension of the human being. So if you suck with firearms, you're not going to be any better with a smart gun. The smart gun is doing the work. So I've always ascribed to the bottom line principle that, if you suck with firearms, improve with firearms.
Yeah,
if you want to try out a smart gun.
How does the smart gun affect bad trigger pull? I mean, if you pull the trigger wrong, what difference does it make if the computer tells you where to shoot it? You just moved the gun.
Yeah.
But see, with Tracking Point, you've already pulled the trigger.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, sorry, I missed. You did say that. I apologize.
But let's look at the Navy SEALs that boarded that took out the skinnies. I shouldn't use it. That's a bad term.
Racist. Here, I'll say it for them. Racist.
Racist. Yes. These Navy SEALs are on board a ship.
Yep.
Took out 3 skinnies that had hijacked the Maersk, Alabama. Okay. Now think about what those guys did. They didn't have smart guns. They had rifles with scopes on them, probably 338 Lapua Magnums, if I had to guess.
On what?
Which I'm probably right. They were on the fantail, a pitching fantail, going up and down, and then you have this little rescue lifeboat going up and down, and you got 3 Navy SEALs. They're zoned in, they're targeted in, they got their wind speed, they got everything, and all 3 of them shot at the same time, taking out the skinnies and rescuing Captain Phillips.
That's a pretty damn impressive feat right there.
And they didn't use smart guns. They used pure skill. Okay?
Agree.
That's what we call badassery.
No kidding.
And those are perishable skills. If they don't keep working on those skills, they go away. Mm-hmm. And that's the same with anybody who picks up, possesses, carries, holds a firearm. Firearm skills are perishable. You've got to keep constantly going at them. For example, in June, I'm probably crazy, but I've enrolled, paid my $425 to be involved in Dave Spalding's Handgun Combatives, which will be held at the club. Very rigorous course, And again, that's my development going forward. These are advanced courses. They're not for the, ground level beginning pistol person. You know what I'm saying? But again, the reason I'm taking that course is to develop my skills moving forward. I was in the military, and I did firearms in the military, and the way they teach firearms in the military is very different the way firearms are taught in the civilian world. Okay, and there is a very clear distinction. Very different, very different. I mean, the military's come a long way in their firearms training, but again, the mission is entirely different. When you're in the civilian world, firearms use is generally defensive. The military, firearms use can be offensive, or generally is offensive if you're in a Marine unit. So those are the distinctions that I always explain to people. So you get a guy that says, I was in the Army for 30 years, I was in Special Forces. Well, he might be equipped to teach, offensive combat, but I'm not sure you're getting everything. Like, for example, you take a guy that goes out, he buys a firearm, Maybe he's 30 years old, never saw anything, never handled a firearm in his whole life. I mean, there is a ground skill. You've got to teach that guy from the ground up. You've got to teach him how to hold that firearm. You got to teach him how to properly, the 4 universal safety rules: finger off the trigger, don't put the finger on the trigger until you're on target and ready to shoot, don't flash the muzzle at anything you don't intend to destroy, and know your target, what's beyond. You've got to inculcate all that. So you take a beginning guy, you teach him how to properly hold the pistol, keep his finger off the trigger, what we call nose over toes, proper stance, proper body positioning. And the reason we teach all that from the ground up is because that all ties into consistency of accuracy. Take that breath, let out half, press the trigger, take up the slack, fire. Okay, sight alignment, sight picture. All of that goes into that basic teaching metric. And my experience has been a lot of military guys don't really have the patience to start somebody from that ground up. They're used to dealing with people that already have some basic level of firearms instruction under their belt. So, I'm not saying that's universal across the board. I don't want to generalize, but a lot of guys that I've seen.
See, I come from the other side of that. I deal with computers all day long.
Sure.
I use a computer at work, and when I'm done with work, since I work at home, I come out, couch time in the living room.
Sure.
And what comes out with me? The computer, so I can do some research for blogging. The computer augments what I can do. I wouldn't be able to do what we do at Granite Rock without the computer. If I need to look something up, I can Google it. To me, it is not just a resource, but it's augmenting my skills with what I do. And I'm looking at, with a smart gun. And again, folks, we're not talking about the smart gun from the aspect of, it can only fire with the owner holding the gun or somebody that's been designated as an owner,
you
a
have
co-owner.
to breathe into it.
Yeah.
yeah. With all this hoo-ha that the Democrats just love because, again, they're looking for that switch where they can disable them all. And we all know that because they will want to do that. But
as an aside, somebody has one of those in their vehicle, you got to breathe into it to make it start. It's always fun to walk and go, hey, what's that for?
Well,
that was just my aside.
I go to Tree Hugger all the time, and there's a rant by Lloyd Alter, one of the more socialist folks there, and he's ruining the day that why aren't we keeping, why aren't they making cars so that you can't text, and why it won't keep all the drunks out? It's like, well, gee, thanks for condemning us and making us all guilty that we have to prove our innocence. Well, he's a Canadian, so he doesn't care.
Right.
But but to get back to the point, so for me to look at something like Tracking Point has, or some of the advanced scopes that are now coming out that pair up with your smartphone, that might have a little bit of a weather gizmo attached to it as well.
Sure.
I'm looking at that. That's going to augment my skills. And yes, by myself, I may not be as good, but it helps me to make myself better. I understand coming from martial arts. You don't do the advanced stuff until you learn the basics, and you're absolutely right, Rick, about learning the basics and fundamentals, which I'm not bad at. I might be an advanced beginner or an early intermediate type of guy. I don't do it all the time, and I haven't been doing it at all lately, and I got to get back into it. But I don't see anything wrong with using technology to make me better, as long as I understand what is it doing for me that perhaps I should learn later. But right now, I don't have to use it to save my life. I use it to enjoy.
Sure. Yeah.
And I see nothing wrong with it.
No, I don't either. I'm kind of at a loss understanding, where the application is later on down the road. That's all.
Well, look at what you've just done.
The
at
application
the club.
is to I'm sorry, let me rephrase this. The application's purpose is to raise the point of purchase for the profit motive. That's the entire.
Hey, that's beautiful. That's well said.
That's all we need.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, why is all this crap in a car? I mean, cars. I mean, the average price of an automobile in America is $32,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Some of that has to do with the fact that used cars are now so damn expensive because of cash for clunkers and a bunch of other crap that happened that made the market so difficult to operate in that you had to buy these newer vehicles, and you can get $20,000 for a 2 or 3 year old car when you used to be able to buy a new car for $6,000. Anyway, so they add all this crap in there. We had the debate about forcing people to use hands-free, the cell phone thing. the car dealerships and the car manufacturers were all like, yes, yes, yes. Why? Because it raises the price point and they can make more money. That's really all it comes down to.
But also look at the price of the car. I think, was it Heritage did a study that the average new car price is at the medium, not the higher ends, but the medium car that most people buy is higher in price by $3,800, not because of all the other stuff that the profit motive, which people, I want to be able to put in a USB and upload some stuff to the radio so I can hear, but for all the stuff the government says that you have to have.
CAF standards, all that other crap.
Yeah, well, especially right now, it's the CAF or CAFE standards, the miles per gallon stuff. That's what's really driving a lot of the cost because of all the R&D.
They got to make the money somewhere.
Yeah, and, understood.
Unlike the government, they can't just give it away.
Yeah, but at the same time, the government says, well, you'll just enjoy the savings from the higher gas mileage. Well, at the same time, you got to spend more for the car. So
I don't need higher gas mileage. What if I need a big gas-guzzling truck because I have to haul equipment everywhere? Stop it. Anyway, we have to stop because we have to call Doug Sackleben from Club for Growth. We will be right back. You stay right there.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Clinton. Damn, it feels good to be a Clinton. A shameless politician always plays her cards right. Got a crew for the fight on the airwaves. Lapdogs in the press keep their mouths tight. Cause a Clinton never needs to explain why it is what they done or with who. A real Clinton knows that they're entitled, and you don't get to know what they do.
What difference does it make?
All right. What difference does it make for Clinton?
Yes.
Haven't played that for a couple weeks. I love that.
We just have to wait for FBI Director Comey to say what difference is it going to make.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, we're going to move on. We have with us returning guest, Communications Director for Club for Growth, Doug Sackleben. Doug, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on again.
Great to have you. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, though. I know originally we wanted to talk about how Donald Trump needed to win New York, but he did that. And
California.
California might be next. If there's something you want to talk about that you guys are doing at Club for Growth, then let's just go there.
Yeah, I mean, we are. We're looking at Indiana. Obviously, we expect that Trump will still continue to have a good week this coming week in some of the Mid-Atlantic states, and so we put up some advertising in Indiana and our focus there, just more as a firewall at this point, and still of the belief that Trump doesn't get to 1237 before the convention. So we'll focus on Indiana, probably California down the road. But admittedly, it continues to be an uphill fight.
We had Mark Meckler on earlier in the show, and we were talking specifically about the convention, brokered convention, the outcome. He seemed pretty certain that there would definitely be that nobody would have enough delegates and that there would be a vote. But he seems to think that that everybody's going to come together behind somebody, whether it's Trump or Cruz. What do you think about that?
I fully agree with Mark on that. We've kind of been monitoring as everybody has some of the RNC discussions down in Florida this week, and we've said all along this idea of Kasich and or dropping in someone else is just fantasy. To change the rules, and they tried to make an effort at it this past week, and clearly were met with some resistance. One of the sources that we talked to said, there's really not an appetite at this point to try to play with the rules, and part of that is I think some of the RNC telegraphed kind of early on that they were willing to do just about anything, including playing those kind of shenanigans with the rules, and it put them under the microscope. and now they realize it's not a smart thing to do, and the best thing they could do is let it come down to a two-man race, and most of the delegates are going to be Cruz and Trump delegates there at the convention. So let them be the ones that ultimately decide this runoff, rather than try to play some kind of games that add further problems to the party that already has enough right now.
Yeah, Rick Olson here. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. I'm one of the lone holdouts here at the Grok Crew. I'm a Trump supporter, and the message I've been giving to my fellow Trumpkins is that at the end of the day, if Ted Cruz is the nominee, you guys got to drop this idea of staying home, and you've got to support the nominee. And I think that message is beginning to resonate a little bit. So inversely, if it's Donald Trump, obviously we got to support the nominee. But if in fact it unfolds to be Ted Cruz, likewise, he's the nominee that we shall support. And I've said that I'm all in if that happens. And I think a lot of people are going in that direction.
Yeah, I've said, and not that the Cruz campaign has any interest in my thoughts on this, but I really do think that if they were to be the ones to end up with the nomination, if Cruz comes out of it with the nomination, I think it's vital for Cruz and company to make it very clear that, like or dislike Donald Trump as far as the personality goes and some of the issues, the fact is he's resonated, and he's done something. I mean, I think what we've seen in a lot of stories is part of the Trump motivation over the last perhaps decade has been the notion that Republicans have dismissed him. Frankly, when he first came out last June, we dismissed him at that point, and he's now proven that we were all wrong in terms of just dismissing him as a candidate. And I think it's vital at that point then for the senator and others to say, listen, the guy has changed the Republican Party, has brought in something that we had not measured or gauged before, and need to appreciate that and move forward, in a united sort of way. I don't know if that'll happen, but I do think you're right, Rick. It's going to be interesting to see what happens after we come out of Cleveland.
Doug, this is Skip, and again, thanks for coming on the show. My question comes more from the personal. The progressives have always had the mantra of the political is the personal is the political. And really, I have seen this. I don't think I've seen this level of rancor since Ronald Reagan ran. Where I'm looking at Donald Trump, and I look at the level of insults that he has been hurling at basically everybody who starts to come after him to gain the number one spot in this race. And certainly Cruz has been answering, a little bit more highbrow than not. Kasich's kind of stayed out of it. But I'm wondering, how hard do you think this is going to be for people to be able to coalesce? For instance, would Ted Cruz actually say, after listening for months, lying Ted Cruz, it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, I'll fall in line, but it's going to be tepid. So
yeah, Skip, as listening to there, I was just old enough, to have voted for Reagan the second time around, but I was at a meeting not long ago with some folks who were part of that campaign, who got me by about 10 years, and who were part of all of the Bush-Reagan days, and they will tell you. One of the people, in fact, made a comment, and she said it was remarkable how for so long after that Reagan-Bush election, people still remained divided based on, you supported Bush, you were with Reagan. And it was so hard within the Republican Party. There were so many hurt feelings, and moving forward was difficult. I tend to believe, as you're saying, this has gone to even a deeper, more intense level. And that divide is really vast. And I think a lot then depends on how Donald handles himself. I mean, we saw Tuesday night after New York, there was a little bit more sober side that I think people appreciated, and he's gone right back to the lion's head. But if there's an opportunity here to bridge the gap, certainly hope he would, but I'm not confident that that'll be the case. And ultimately, it ends up, all roads then end up pointing to Hillary.
I mean, I can bring up the Reagan race, but going back to the beginning of our foundation, to the first few presidential races. If you think it's bad now, it was worse back then. There was a reason why the founders put the First Amendment in, was to protect all these political pamphleteers, which they were just outrageous at what was going on. The point is, though, I'm looking at... Uh-oh. I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, hey.
Dang! I'll have to come back to it again.
Come up with something else, quick. I was going to say that, and along those lines, given the tenor of the narratives and the conversation, squirrels, yes, derailed his train of thought, you did. And, that is a question. Is it possible? I mean, I've said that I thought that if Trump won, he should take Cruz as a VP, even though it's been as caustic as it is, and then he gets, by default, most of the Cruz supporters. I don't know that it works in reverse that way, but, I'm thinking about it because that's kind of what I do. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think what Skip was just saying, just historically, I mean, there is, that history is at least encouraging in saying if you do look back at some of these and some of the bitter, vindictive narrative that's been there, that somehow out of it has come some level of good governance, and a fair amount of that has been, even in the Republican Party's history. You have to hope that at some level, when you see the course that the country has been on for the last near 8 years now, that we really want to see just the influence on the federal courts, the ability to appoint judges right on up to the Supreme Court. There's so much at stake that if there's not a commitment at that point to try to actually turn things and come together on what can be agreed on, we're in rough shape, at that point. And then you're talking down ticket. I mean, your senator there from New Hampshire, and I could name, easily 4, 5, 6 other races where the down ballot effect of a party that remains in a level of crisis is going to be devastating and is going to lose us the Senate.
There isn't nearly as much conversation about the division on the left between Sanders and Clinton. Obviously,
it's starting.
It's been going on for a while. The Sanders people are bitter, of course, obviously, because they think it's rigged, and it is. But what do you think about that side? I mean, I guess basically the perspective on the division. Is it real? How much of an effect do you think it will have on the nominating process and on the general election?
And how can you exploit it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the good question at the end too. Is how you do that, because my quick response to what you were first saying there, and it's probably pretty biased response, is the Democrats, I think, and again, this is coming from a conservative Republican, but I think thrive on low information voters who they can say, you got to vote D. Whatever has the D after it, you just vote for. And the principal issue is not as important. So you will have a lot of that younger population that has been interested in Bernie and following Bernie. We saw some of that growth in that voter base under Obama, but still not to the level that people had projected going into 2008 and 2012. So I don't know how enormous of a loss that is if that group still sits this one out. I think, frankly, the major cities and the minority vote that the Democrats have always excelled at, getting to turn out on Election Day and not really focus on the candidate, just vote D, I think that's still going to be very tough to overcome. How we exploit it, that's a great question. I think you're more exploiting just the fact that Hillary's such a terrible candidate, and so many of the polls of even Democrats show they struggle to trust her or like her, and she's got to be portrayed as somebody who's untrustworthy and unlikable. Certainly Bernie hasn't hit her. At times he's hit her on that, but not enough to make a difference.
I've always said that one of the reasons Dunkin' Donuts is so popular in Massachusetts is because it has 2 D's in it.
That's a good explanation right there.
So,
you're making me question my liking of Dunkin' Donuts.
No, I'm drinking it right now. I just
okay,
every Saturday morning. Yeah, I would say that for the Bernie supporters, maybe it is the young voters. That you can get them to stay home. It's not that hard.
Yeah, especially if a lot of them were those kids that came off the Occupy movement. Yeah.
And historically, that group just doesn't. I mean, there's always the talk of what influence that group could bring. And if Bernie was in, I suspect, if he became the Democratic candidate, you might attract some of that hasn't been there before. But Obama struggled to still bring that. As much as they say they want that youth vote, it's still, when it comes down to November, a lot of that 18 to 25-year-old group really isn't as motivated to get out as we seem to think beforehand.
A question for you. Talking about low information voters and the young, obviously a lot of times the two are the same. But I remarked earlier on the show of look at all the money that Bernie has raised in small donations. And while that it's great because it proves that you don't have to have big money in a race to actually make it work, I'm just absolutely sick over the fact that an open socialist here in America is getting that much money. Open socialist, pretty much a closet communist when you really look at some of the stuff that he has done.
Not so much closet either.
No, not really. He's not hiding it that
it's
much.
It's a transparent closet.
It's a transparent closet. There's no door in the closet.
But I'm looking at it from the low voters, and I've written extensively about it on Granick Rock, about, it's because our education system doesn't teach our real history and real philosophy. You at Club for the Growth do a lot of ads. How do you reach these folks that really don't know what socialism really means? How do you combat that?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and I think as you were getting at, I was just thinking that it's the history that's the problem, the communication of history, plus the mentality of the last 8 years. I think, and I don't think Republicans, I don't want to put this in a way that we've hurt ourselves by doing this, but I think we've accurately portrayed some of Obama's policies as socialist in nature and ultimately wanting to move more in that direction. And frankly, a lot on the Democrat side seem to like that idea. And amongst the younger voters, I think the mentality has become, oh, okay, well, if that's what socialist is, then socialist must be good. And I don't know how in 30-second, even 1-minute ads, we reverse that when it's becomes so ingrained, especially in the higher education system. I think at some level, Republicans have to offer better, inviting opportunities to what opportunity means to actually succeed on your own and get wealth and find out what it's like to prosper. And we've got to portray that and communicate that and do it by policy and engaging. I think Reagan certainly was the model of doing that, but even guys like Jack Kemp over the years, trying to show that there's this capitalist side is not this evil side, but it's actually the side that gives you the most freedom to pursue. But we're up against a real tide, in the education system that makes that very tough.
Skip.
Yeah. My wife and I ran a daycare center, and as part of that, because the same folks that would evaluate our daycare center for all the right stuff were also the ones that said, you need to take these basically DCYF kids and accept our low rates. So I had a lot of single moms in our lobby all the time, and I could hear them talking about how to get more free stuff. And we had a couple of people who used that as a stepping stone and made things of themselves. But too many of these young mothers and their broken down, stupid boyfriends, lazabouts in the garage drinking beer during the day, they were perfectly happy to get all the free stuff. And I saw it getting worse and worse. And now with both Hillary and Bernie saying, we'll give you free this, free that, free this, free that, it's like, how do you... I understand the opportunity, but how do you say, don't take the free stuff? That's a hard sell. I don't know how to do it.
No. A friend of mine was a little older than me, used to actually wrote back in one of the second Reagan campaign, did some speech writing, has been involved in messaging for Republicans for years, and his argument is that we've moved to a completely consumer-oriented culture, which, of course, favors then exactly what you're saying, whoever gives away the most, and somehow we as conservatives have to find a way to say, this is what government can do for you in terms of security and opportunity. And as I listened, I mean, I'm moved by the things that he was saying. That's the things I think government should do is pave the way and get out of the way. But to match that up against an ad that says government will, take care of your health care, take care of your college loans and anything else they can think of in a consumer-oriented culture, it's an old message, unfortunately, on our part, but it's one we've got to stick with. I just don't know how you overcome the salesmanship side other than to show people what it looks like to truly succeed on your own with individual liberty and not with the government there boosting you up in some way.
Yeah, and we've got Republicans actually reinforcing that message.
Yep.
I think that there's got to be a way, because there's only so much the government can do. There's only a level of, we'll call it prosperity with air quotes, that you can achieve living on the dole. It's obviously gotten a lot better in recent years than it has in the past, but there's got to be a point at which you can't get a better life if you rely on the government.
But they don't care.
I know they don't, but there are people who do care. You know?
Yep.
I mean, there are people who do care. There are people who will get tired of being the guy who drinks beer in the garage. There are people out there like that. I mean, we have 93 million Americans who used to have jobs and don't. I don't think those are the people that are going to sit in the garage and drink beer. Some of them are, but not all of them. So I think we need to find a way to reach those people. But we've run out of time. How do people reach you, sir?
Clubforgrowth.org. If they check us out there, clubforgrowth.org, they'll find out all about us. They can follow us at Twitter, and there it's club and the number 4 growth. As our Twitter handle. We'd love for people to check us out, see what we're doing, and you can join up for free and get our emails and catch up on a lot of House and Senate races where we're engaged right now.
All right, Doug Sackleben, Club for Growth, thank you so much, and you have a great weekend.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, sir.
Doug.
All right, we will be right back. Stay tuned right after this.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Sorry? All right, I got to make sure I turn all these microphones on because we have another guest in the room.
We do.
The level of beauty and intelligence has risen dramatically.
Oh, my.
Thank you so much, Jane Cormier, for coming in.
I love you guys. You
and
know that.
talent, too.
Oh, my. Yes, I just finished a rehearsal with kids on Hansel and Gretel. I talk about switching hats.
No kidding.
We're just children with other stories.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think we're all children with other stories.
All right. So, speaking of other stories, today there is a peaceful protest.
Absolutely.
At
Outside
Planned
Planned Parenthood. 3 locations today. We started off, it's kind of interesting that we started last year with one major, we participated in a nationwide protest at Pennacook Street in Manchester, and grew three more. Actually 4 later on today. It's not part of the whole nationwide protest, but I believe that they're even doing one down protest today down in the Seacoast area. Mm-hmm. But Claremont, Derry, and Manchester all are out there protesting, Planned Parenthood. And as I like to say, to inform people that we should stop feeding the beast. So it's good. We have great numbers when we do these. Fairly strong numbers. I think the last one that we did certainly had well over 150 people at it. Kids, older people, younger people. And I always tell everybody the really good news that the left will never tell you. They will never say this. And even online and social media, we have a hard time finding it. Never before have we seen the numbers of youth coming
That
up.
that actually has been commented upon.
Yeah, it's
It
scary.
is, but I mean, mostly here, and it's because we've talked about the technology and the ability to see that it's a living being inside a womb, and that it's and that personhood matters.
Absolutely. But we're seeing it on college campuses.
Go ahead. I did the wrong one.
Oh, my. Sorry, I was coughing here.
That's okay. We've been doing that all day, so it's all right.
Yeah. The interesting thing is college campuses are now starting to stand up and not be afraid. Students for Life have a really strong organization and are multiplying all over the place. And I love it because we're trying to not just talk about, of course, abortion on the life spectrum, but we're able to now start linking the entire life spectrum, which I maintain is the future of the life debate. We have got to start understanding. People close up once you start talking about abortion. Well, it's already legal. Well, let's start looking at the full spectrum, and that is we're now dealing with euthanasia, eugenics. We're dealing with all kinds of stuff as baby boomers age. This does impact you. Slow care impacts you.
I like that way of putting it. Slow care.
Oh my goodness! People,
Obamacare, slow care.
Yeah, well, slow care is a very, very. They actually practice this. Progressives
We should
practice
go out
this.
and find, because there's plenty of people involved in this Obamacare implementation who said things about you're not, the pain pill and all that other crap, and we're not going to give you the knee, and you're not going to get that, you just got a knee, and and all this other stuff, and you're not going to get it, and your quality of life is going to go.
Totally. That's part of the whole progressive agenda. Because if you're not paying, and this gives us an opportunity to talking about personhood is really when I'm talking about the full spectrum of life. When you just start to discuss the fact that at 65 you might absolutely be X'd for any kind of a replacement surgery, simply because the progressive mindset is, well, you're not paying in anymore. Right? You're probably not working, you're not paying as many taxes. So really, if you love your community and you love your country, you'll do the right thing. And you won't fight this. You'll just go quietly into the night and go suffer and die early when they give you a pain pill.
Well, as Ezekiel Emanuel put it, they have put this idea of that each life has a not an expense, but a worth, a dollar worth.
Right.
And they... when you have government rationing medicine, that's exactly how they're going to look at it. We have
Logan's
to ration.
Run. We're going to kill you the minute you turn 30.
Well, on Tree Hugger...
they need you longer to pay taxes.
Well, and as Ezekiel Emanuel said, 75 or 72, you ought to be dead. We're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And he says, I look forward to that day. And I said, and I wrote, why wait?
Yeah.
I was
and
gonna
on
say,
Tree Hugger...
wait a minute.
What?
So... what's the big deal about all this advertising about needing to extend life expectancy with superior government health care?
Yeah,
if they're going to not treat you for any...
It's of course a canard.
What
And
a load
look
of
at the
crap.
singer, Pete Singer, right? We hear a lot about him. I think he has a sibling, too, that's now Ann Singer that's working in the...
Is this the bioethicist?
No, it is. It
Yes.
is the Pete Singer, who decided that, he really just wanted to kill his mother, when she got elderly, because, whatever, and if it wasn't for his sister, he would have just, put her down like a dog, right? These folks have so, behind the scenes, controlled the debate that now it's starting to ooze out into the public sector as we're getting older. Oh, gee, I'm getting close to 65. Maybe I should think about this.
Well, then you can bring in other parts of the debate, like how Democrats and people like Pete Singer are pretty much okay with what we would call fourth trimester abortions,
Absolutely.
Well, they
Up
actually
to 2
are.
years.
Up to
Absolutely.
2 years. The first time I read that...
But people don't really know that.
But they are now. That's, Stephen, I'm telling you, I'm seeing it everywhere I speak. I find that people are now starting to be informed about aspects that even 2 or 3 years ago everybody thought was just tinfoil hat stuff. And it's starting to mainstream.
Well, just like what we did with Granite State Futures and the Sustainable Communities Initiative, we see the AFFPH rule coming out of HUD that's basically saying, well, we've got this big inner city, Chicago, and we've got Dubuque, Iowa, and they're contiguous as far as the government is concerned. We warned about this for years, and now we see it happening. But going back, I have to ask the question, because Steve, ask your question that you really wanted to hear from Jane, whether they had done rule.
Did they try to do a buffer zone? Buffer zone? Did they try to institute a buffer
what do you
zone?
mean?
Pennacook.
Not yet,
No?
but they've measured.
Okay.
We think that what they're doing is they're sort of feeling it all out to see how this is going to go. But you know what? Put it up.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great debate. New Hampshire This coming year, for the Life, New Hampshire Right to Life, has a campaign ready to rock that it's going to be awesome. Father Christian Tudor is going to head it up. It's a personhood campaign, and it's got multiple portions of it that we're going to implement at different times. And let's say put up the buffer zone. Go ahead. We're going to see you in court, and we're going to keep letting taxpayers know what you are costing them because you want to play with something that is essentially an unconstitutional rule or law. And let's have at it, because you know what? It opens the debate for us. We are winning the debate. Planned Parenthoods across this country are being defunded at numbers we have never seen before.
Isn't Jennifer Horn just going to love this?
You know, I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and I as with most things, you know, squirrels, I left that nut over there for later. But I had come out and said that I basically accused Planned Parenthood of oppressing its own customers by not instituting its necessary buffer zone, you know. This is essential to protecting women and their right to health care, and they haven't been doing it, which means they're denying them this right to health care by refusing to implement the thing they said they had to have to get it.
Well, they know they're treading on very, very, you know, this ground is not safe ground at all. And I think that they're weighing whether or not, maybe it's a time thing for them. Who knows? They do things sometimes politically to help, you know, the people that are corrupted into their system, you know, like the Jean Shaheens that make money, and Hassan that get big bucks off of our tax-paying dollars to Planned Parenthood. So who knows how... I personally think that maybe they're talking and saying, can this benefit you guys in any way? Do we want to do the buffer zone here? Who knows what's happening, but bring it. We love it.
Speaking of the federal government's ambassador to New Hampshire, Jean Shaheen, did you see where there was a congressional hearing committee that talked about the Planned Parenthood type videos, and they found that indeed they were selling the body parts for different amounts, and they just announced their results this week, and Jean Shaheen is already flapping her gums saying, we have to shut this committee down.
All right, this was false information, and she's saying all this stuff. You know what? It's funny. They're like cockroaches. And when you start to shine the light, boy, do they go into motion, and they start scattering, and they'll start throwing out. They're having a very difficult time, I'm telling you guys, selling the women's health care. Because we just keep saying, pro-lifers just keep saying back, abortion is not women's health care. That is not a disease. That is not an organ. That is not a part of their body and limb system. This is a different entity from them.
It just occurred to me that one way to go at this, and Jean Shaheen, would be to say, what do you mean they're selling the baby parts at different prices? That's inequality. You need to have a committee to go in and make sure that all the Planned Parenthoods sell those baby parts for the exact same price.
Well, I was talking about different tissue types.
I know, but still.
What about regional standards?
I guarantee you. Get the planning boards involved. You have to set up standards, and then you keep it in front of people.
Yeah, very sick, huh?
It
is.
You're
right. It's so sick that we have gotten to the point where these people will take something as profoundly important as a baby, fetus, Latin, baby, and kill it for financial gain, lie about it when they're caught, and then even when they have indisputable proof at this House hearing, federal House hearings, the proof is sitting right there, and still these corrupted people, how do they sleep at night?
Well, the only reason that they can, to take a more serious note, is that they've gone through what the Democrats have always been trying to do to the Tea Party, which is to dehumanize them. So they'll use the word zygote. They'll use the word fetus. They don't seem to understand that just because they're using a different word, it's just a scientific word for a different stage of the development of an unborn baby. I mean, fetus means immature baby. That's all it means.
You just keep saying it.
Yeah.
So when people come up and we do, there have been times where we've had some pretty irate people respond.
You think?
Yeah, I've actually been threatened that they were gonna burn me in my office here in Concord. I had to go to the police and report that one. But they're very ugly when they come up to you. I mean, cussing and in your face. And when they talk about that, my body, my choice. Your baby. You just keep saying baby. Absolutely infuriates. You know why? Because I believe this as a woman. I believe this, and I know, isn't that a terrible thing? I'm a woman. I should say something different, right? I believe in their heart of hearts, even the coldest supporter of abortion knows that is their baby, and they can't go there.
I don't think so.
Oh, I disagree. They can't go there is why they're so ugly about it. Because they know if they open that door a little bit to shed a little bit of light, they have to face the fact that
I
they
would
have
agree with that
supported
because
them.
to women, everything is connected. Everything is connected. I mean, it's all wired together. It's a big ball of wire. Everything relates to something else, and it's one great big circle of life thing. And I agree. And it would explain the anger and the
ugliness.
outrage and the ugliness that's necessary. Because when you have to defend a paradigm that's undefensible, but you refuse. I mean, we deal with this every day.
That's right.
People come to us and say, we're liars, we're stupid, because they disagree.
Right.
They won't defend themselves. They'll just call us names. It's because what they're supporting in their own minds is indefensible, and the only way that they can continue to believe it is to be mad all the time.
See, and what is your response? Your response when that happens usually isn't that level of anger back. When they get mad or spit at me, I might really be disgusted by it. But you know what? I don't have that same ugliness, I want you to die feeling coming at them. I'm kind of stupefied, I admit, and I could stand up for myself, but I don't hate anybody. I don't wish anybody ill.
But
so
see,
that's different.
But that's one of the differences you see between the left and the right. The left, there is that phrase: Republicans think that Democrats are misguided. Democrats think Republicans are evil, and now just change those two political party names to left versus right, and you get the same thing. And they really do believe that we are evil people. And when you say that somebody is evil or act like you are evil, what they're really doing is going back to the 1930s and 40s. If you are evil, then you must be put down. You are subhuman, and then it just flows from there. And it goes back to the full personhood that you talked about: the preborn, the born, the toddlers, the adolescents, the young adults, the senior citizens, and and finally the eugenics.
Right.
While they're trying to place a price on a human life, what they're really saying is that you are not worth anything if the government's going to step in and allow you to be cut short.
And this is where I think they can be beat on that argument, because they can say what government is all they want. Essentially, once people are in tune with their own humanity.
Yeah. One thing I'm going to say real quick.
2
I did
minutes.
put up a video of Ben Shapiro talking at a college campus, and there's a little bit on there about body autonomy, and one of the students brought that up. And I probably need to go and bump it up because of this show. And he literally destroyed that whole argument. And he does it in such a logical, rapid-fire way. The girl was just going, humana, 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 humana.
I think from a macro societal perspective, there's much more lost too. Let's look at, the women, the Now Gang back in the 1970s, right after Betty Friedan and that whole ugly crowd. We're talking about equality, but what we've evolved to is look hard at the family and children choices being made today, and show me where a man's role fits that. The answer is zero.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a woman's right to choose. If she chooses to have the child, he pays the child support. If she chooses to abort it, he has nothing to say about it.
I have a post about that. It's called the Vulva, VULVA. It's the acronym for a document that women have to sign when they force men to abort their rights. It's pretty funny. It's really hilarious. I read it a long time ago. I will try to bump it up. All right, we're almost out of time. I did want to add before we go, thank you again, Jane, for coming in, that I was having a conversation with my kids who have professors at college who are very liberal, and they know, to try to tune it out. But I told them, I said, well, look, here at the end of the day, here's why, because they're like, well, they sound like they're as right as you sound like when you talk about it, like, you believe it so much. And I said, well, look, here's the difference. What they want for you. You don't have a choice. What I want, you can choose to have what they want, or you can choose to have what I want. I don't care which one you want, but I want you to have the freedom to decide for yourself. They don't want you to have that.
Right.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to Grok Talk, hanging out, listening to the podcast, whatever you're doing. We're out of here. We'll be back next week with Skip and Mike. I'm gone. See you later.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteGrok.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. Some of the content on this program is shared under the fair use provision of U.S. copyright law, found free in the public domain, or covered under Attribution 3.0. Some of the music on this program is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Grok Talk.